tale about a fantastic tale. For the first time on television, Daryl Hannah and Tom Hanks. Tuesday at 8:30, Splash on 7.
Newsworld is proudly brought to you by Canon.
Welcome to Newsworld. There's been another dramatic rescue from a fishing trawler off the New Zealand coast. On Thursday, 2 men died when a helicopter crashed while trying to rescue people from the stricken trawler. And there was more trouble when fishermen and another helicopter returned to salvage the trawler.
The wreckage of the Lama helicopter stood on the cliff top today as a silent reminder of yesterday's fatal crash. At the bottom of the cliff, fishermen struggled to drag the damaged fiberglass Howard L. shad bolt off the rocks. Once the ropes were in place, the men on board were lifted off by helicopter. Ironically, the same maneuver which yesterday ended in disaster. But after the men were taken off the vessel, one of the ropes broke and the assisting craft had to regain the rope. Then the men had to be repositioned back onto the listing fishing boat. The process of ferrying men backwards and forwards in such hazardous conditions meant that valuable time was lost. The tide was turning, and hopes of dragging the Howard L. shad bolt free were fading by late morning. As the fishermen were brought up from the vessel one last time, it was almost certain the Howard L. shad bolt was beyond salvage.
Emergency services averted a potential disaster in Melbourne yesterday when petrol spilled into the city's drainage system. It was feared vapours from the petrol might explode as it ran through the storm water drains from Carlton to the Yarra River.
Firemen were called to the Myer warehouse in Queensbury Street, Carlton, around midday. An unknown quantity of petrol had spilled out of an underground storage tank, either during or after a fuel delivery. The building was evacuated while the spill was blanketed with foam. 2 firemen were taken to St Vincent's Hospital with minor injuries from a burst fire hose.
We've taken readings from our flammable detectors, and the situation at the moment is quite safe.
But the petrol had been washed more than a kilometre down the stormwater drainage system, causing chaos at the Burke and Elizabeth Street intersection. City traffic was disrupted for more than 2 hours while emergency services worked on the potentially explosive spill. The foam poured out through the drains into the Yarra River and was finally contained by a boom set up by the Port Emergency Service. By 3:30, emergency services proclaimed the disaster averted.
The federal opposition and the Democrats say they'll try to block the new Australia card legislation in the Senate. The pledge follows the disclosure that the proposed legislation includes penalties of up to $20,000 for breaches of the national ID system. As Paul Lynham reports, the legislation also provides for jail terms of up to 5 years.
If you open a bank or building society account and they do not ask for your Australia card, or they do not record the number, or they do not tell the taxman about it, then they will face a fine of $20,000. It's your bank or building society that will be liable, and you will pay nothing. But watch out if you try to misuse the card. The card you will have to produce from July '89 every time you buy property, open an account with a stockbroker, get a job, send money overseas, claim from Medicare or Social Security, or go into hospital. For example, under the proposed legislation to be put to Parliament the week after next, people using a false card or someone else's card will face a $10,000 fine or 5 years jail or both. Defacing or altering a card will cost $5,000 or 2 years jail or both, and so will the offence of making a false statement when applying for a card. Using someone else's card to deceive the Commonwealth, that's Medicare and Social Security, will cost $1,000 or 6 months jail or both. And forcing people to produce their cards without authority will bring a fine of $2,000.
Premier John Cain has dismissed prospects of an early election and said his government would run its full term. Mr Cain said talk of an early election was just a cover for turmoil within the Liberal Party in Victoria.
I'll not be calling any election on December the 13th or any other day around that date, as has been suggested. We don't need one, and Victorians don't want one.
And while the Premier says he has no intention of going to the polls yet, he insists that if the upper house does block the budget bills, the move would not automatically force an election. Talk of an early poll, he says, is the outward sign of discontent in the Liberal Party, in particular with the leadership of Jeff Kennett.
Look, I understand something of the pressures over there, and I really think that the leader of the opposition is a bit like a pressure cook at the moment. I'm not sure what's going to pop off next.
While Mr Kennett maintains he has the party's full support over his election threat, many members are known to be upset, if only for the fact that they found out about it through the media. But of course, the big worry for many Liberals and National Party members is that if there was an election, could they win it? Mr Kennett was not backing away from his recent statements today, but he did admit his election threat had caused some misgivings among his colleagues.
A lot of people are always scared of change. When you bring about a new order of things, those who have done well under the old system are concerned, and some who may do well under the new system are lukewarm.
The battle to challenge Australia for next year's America's Cup is proving more interesting on land than on water. This follows protests by 2 US syndicates over the construction of the New Zealand syndicate's yacht. The controversy has revived memories of the mystery surrounding Australia 2's wing keel, and leading the protest is none other than Dennis Connor.
As far as I'm concerned, the reason the question is being brought up is so there won't be another wing kill controversy, so it should be handled right now before the event gets too far where it could make a significant difference in the event.
The dogs have been barking that the Connor syndicate wanted samples to prove the Kiwi boat was made of lighter stuff at the ends than she was in the middle. This is all about GRP, glass reinforced plastics, fiberglass. That's what separates the Kiwi yachts from all other 12s. They're all made from aluminium alloy. And it's the mystery of fiberglass that's prompted even Connor's most consistent critic, Tom Blackaller, to support Dennis's call to find out what makes them tick.
These are the first boats that have been raced that have been fiberglass, and the Lloyd's rules are very, very cloudy. And all Dennis wants to know, and I'd like to know it too, is whether that boat's lighter in the ends than it is in the middle. And you guys ought to back down and let it happen.
Syndicate Chief Michael Fay worked hard to outline his syndicate's position.
Preconditions for racing in this regatta are stated. The New Zealand boat has met them. It has its Lloyd's certificate. Someone asked, where is it? I said it's in the same drawer as the letters. Filed away, and I mean, really, that's where the matter stops from the New Zealand.
So no one's asked you for a core sample?
No one has done anything to, asked of, sent, written to, from, or anything else of the New Zealand syndicate.
Would you give one if they asked?
We can't see at this point in time why you go back over the eligibility of any boat for the regatta once the boat's sailing.
That's no?
That's a pretty clear no.